Back to Jack Smith. In his first live television interview since resigning from the DOJ, the former special counsel sat down exclusively with our friend, MS Now's Nicole Wallace, for that wide-ranging conversation yesterday. Before he stepped down from the DOJ back in 2025, Smith brought two cases against Donald Trump, one on election interference and the other related to classified documents. Both were dropped because Trump then won the presidency in 2024. Smith defended his investigations and also weighed in on the rule of law, as well as his concerns about the upcoming midterm elections.
I have investigated cases focusing on the facts and the law throughout my career. We did this case the same way, under the same standards. And, you know, the thing that's, I think, important for your viewers to know is those standards are not meant to change from one administration to the next. And in my experience, until now, they haven't. And so, you know, I think we are facing an attack on the rule of law that is different in kind and scope to anything I've seen in my lifetime. One of the problems right today, besides the retribution prosecutions, is that the Justice Department can't do its job, right? If you go to court,
explain that.
Well, if you go to court and the judges don't trust you, you can't do the basic things that you need to do to represent the American people in court. And we have seen judges across the country say they can't trust prosecutors anymore. And that has such a cascading effect on any sort of case. And, you know, I can't count how many opinions, but one opinion like that in my career would have been seismic. People would not know what to do if a court said, you know, trust that's been built over generations has been lost in days, right? And that's happening every day. And so regardless of what you think politically, they're just not effective at doing their job anymore.
Well, let me ask you first, do you agree that we are covering in real time an assault on our elections, the upcoming ones?
I'm very concerned of what's going to happen in the next election, absolutely. It's a different situation now based on, you know, the people who perpetrated January 6th have probably learned from how they did that. My personal view is I think the state attorney generals have a tremendous role to play here. They can make sure the rule of law functions in their state. And I would also say that I think a thing that all of us can do is support election workers and election officials. The last time around, we saw that those people stood firm, and they were, in many cases, the difference. It's clear to me, anyways, that what I've seen publicly, that those people are going to be put under great pressure. And my experience, not only just the special counsel, but, you know, I was the chief of the public integrity section at the Department of Justice for 5 years, had a number of cases with election officials. These are people also, they're not tooting their own horn. They're not self-promoters. They just care about our democracy. We need to show them that we have their back.
If you took the name of our country off it and you were just examining the state of the rule of law in America, is it dead?
I don't think so at all. And for the reasons I said earlier, there are legions of career prosecutors, people just like me, you just don't know their name, who want to do the right thing. They're in the Justice Department. They want to serve. We have a lot of challenges in front of us, and the rehabilitation of the department is not going to be any mean feat. You know, recovering character is a lot harder than gaining it in the first place. But I think we're totally capable of doing that. I'm completely optimistic.
Ali Vitale, an extraordinary interview there. Finally hearing from Jack Smith, and I think a stark assessment of course, what happened, why his cases vanished, but also his fears. Though he voted, you know, he suggests the rule of law he believes still is alive and well here in the United States, but his fears about this upcoming election and beyond.
Well, look, I think that there needs to be a dose of some optimism in that. Otherwise, the entire tone and tenor of the interview is from dire warning to all out, we are in flames. And so you still need somewhere to go, right? And I think that's why what happens in November is so important. I mean, I can't tell you the number of phone calls that I get from, you know, Democratic operatives looking at various parts of our election systems and wondering, okay, where could they be exploited and what could we do to plug that hole in advance of that? And I think the early answer is that you just sort of have to wait to file these things in court until something happens. And so you've just got legions of people who understand our election systems trying to figure out the ways that something might go wrong. Nevertheless, I think it's a dire assessment from Jack Smith, someone who has been loath to come out in the media, who, when he was hauled in front of Congress, immediately wanted to do so in the public eye because he had never been given a chance to present his public findings. And the thing that I really keep back in the back of my mind is that the foundation of Jack Smith coming forward right now, Eugene, is that he is someone who felt he could have successfully prosecuted the current president of the United States on not just keeping classified documents after leaving office, but on meddling with and trying to corrupt American election results after he lost the 2020 presidential election. And the thing that's changed since then is that the American public saw January 6th. They watched the next few years, and then they said, you know what, let's put that person back in office again. And so I wonder how you make sense of the Jack Smith warnings, the work that he did, the knowledge that he brings to the table, and the fact that the American public still said, this is the person we want in the Oval.
Yeah, there's probably no one more frustrated about that than Jack Smith,
yeah.
right? He is someone who understands more intimately than any of us do about what happened and what the Trump team was doing, what their allies were doing. A lot of it happened in plain view, right? The phone call in Georgia, et cetera. But there are things that he knows that none of us, we may never know now because of the judges. What I took from that interview the most was that, one, he is someone who doesn't want to speak up, like you said. We've had folks that have worked for him on our show. You probably have them on yours. And the thing that they said over and over is this is not a guy who wants to be out front talking to reporters. He doesn't want to do 2 blocks on any show, let alone a show as amazing with an amazing journalist like Nicole Wallace. But he's doing it, they say, because he is so concerned. And the hope is that, one, maybe not MAGA Republicans, but people will watch that and say, okay, since this is a guy who knows all of this, maybe there is something there as we get closer. Maybe I should rethink the way that we're thinking about this. And most importantly, he doesn't sound unhinged or crazy or full of hate like Donald Trump and some Republicans have tried to paint him. So it's also about making clear to folks he's just kind of a normal guy who's a prosecutor, very measured, who knows a lot of information and wants people to be concerned about what's going to happen in this country.
Eugene, I had the same feeling. Listening to Jack Smith, I was reminded this is a career prosecutor. Yeah. He's talking about how to rehabilitate, how to rebuild the Justice Department. He's talking about the career attorneys who are still there trying to do their jobs. He says, I was for 5 years the head of the public integrity section, prosecuting Republicans, Democrats, everybody. I stand for, he's in effect telling us, the rule of law. And we're going to rebuild that. It was like, he's not a defeated guy. He's facing enormous pressure himself. But his thoughts, we're with his colleagues, we're with the country, we're with the rule of law. So, Jonathan, he's that interview is pretty powerful. But I think we got a sense of who Jack Smith is in his comments under pressure. That's pretty interesting. This is not the kind of snarling anti-Trump guy that we've been led to believe. This is a career public prosecutor trying to do his job.
A career public prosecutor trying to do his job, an important voice to hear from right now.